Everybody hates Boris. For our regular viewers, this will be unsurprising news, and for anybody else who's even got just a bit of an ear to the ground on the in England, probably not that surprising either, because it seems that the Tories have initiated a vote of confidence to be going on later today between 6 and 8, which will determine whether Boris Johnson will remain the leader of the Conservative Party, which is going to be very interesting. Before we go any further, though, I'd like to draw your attention to a video that Carl did last month called Boris Was Elected as a Radical, which is talking about, which is basically just a reminder of how far Boris has fallen from what he was initially elected for. Would you like to talk a bit about it?
Yeah, it's tragic, isn't it? Like, as Boris was elected on the wave of Brexit, get Brexit done. This is going to be fixed. And in this video, I just explained that, look, Brexit wasn't just about the sort of legalese of being in the European Union. Brexit was a concern about the lack of Britishness in our political system and a restoration to something we've lost. And now Boris is just so far down the rabbit hole of being like Tony Blair 3.0 that it's just embarrassing. It's no wonder everyone hates him, because he's incapable of satisfying the left, and he seems to not understand that there is a right wing who wants to be spoken to. And so it's just tragic, frankly.
Yeah, we've got a choice between two progressive parties, and he has just failed to live up to every expectation. When you talk about the fact that, it wasn't, because the left likes to look at Brexit purely economically.
I know.
And that's not what most people were voting on. They were voting on culture. And Boris has just continually let that culture slip away from us. And I just want to point out as well, it's the reason why DeSantis is popular in Florida, because he actually faces against the progressive agenda and pushes against it, which is something that Boris has continually refused to do, because he's a coward. He's spineless.
He doesn't just push against it, he actively legislates against it. He actually takes steps. I mean, Boris has got he probably still has 380 majority in Parliament, so he could have done anything. He could have just done anything. He could have done whatever he wanted. He could have gone through it and just gone, no, all of this is Blairite nonsense, we're getting rid of it. But he hasn't done anything like that.
Yes, and it's led to where we are now. So let's get into the news itself. So if we go to the first link that we've got here from GB News, the Boris Johnson no confidence vote has been confirmed by Sir Graham Brady, who I think is the head of the 1922 Commission, and the ballot will be taken between 6 and 8 tonight. Let's just take a look at this. So Johnson is facing a vote of no confidence by Tory MPs amid anger across the party at the disclosures over lockdown parties in Downing Street. Now, if this is why he eventually ends up getting voted out of the leadership position of the Tories, is a pretty pathetic reason. John loves to point out something, which is that the whole discourse going on around the parties is stupid, because the discourse is like, oh, he shouldn't have broken lockdown rules, when it's like they broke lockdown rules because everybody knew they were stupid in the first place.
Yeah.
He should apologise for the lockdown rules being implemented, say this will never happen again, and I think you mentioned in the video, give compensation to all the people who were arrested or persecuted as a result of them, and then move on with an actual conservative agenda. But he refuses to, because he's pathetic at this point, let's be perfectly honest.
No, you're absolutely right. It's completely disgraceful that this is something that he did in the first place. And he knew it was wrong. He knew it was wrong at the time, and he did it anyway. And now he's paying the price for it. So
yeah, so you get what you deserve, it seems.
Yeah, I'm not terribly sympathetic.
Me neither. Sir Graham Brady, chairman of the Backbench 1922 Committee, confirmed in a statement that he has received the 54 letters from Conservative MPs needed to trigger a vote. And that's at least 54 MPs, meaning at least, I think it was 15% of the Conservative MPs who are actively against Boris, which is not that much of a surprise, but the reasons why differ from person to person, and we'll get into that. The vote by secret ballot will take place in Westminster later on today. It comes after a steady stream of Tory MPs called publicly for the Prime Minister to stand down in the wake of Sue Gray's report into breaches of COVID regulations at Number 10 and in Whitehall.
Just before we move on from that, right?
Oh, yeah.
What percentage of the British public do you think really care about that?
I think if you were to poll them, it would be very different from their actual feelings.
Right.
Because I think a lot of people are more than happy to use it. Like, I'm happy to use it as a beating stick to keep him under control and stop him from implementing more illiberal, anti-British policies in the future. But in reality, I don't actually
Nobody's
care.
talking about it on the street.
No, I don't care.
Nobody talks about it. You can go to the pub, go to a cafe, whatever. No one sat there discussing Partygate in there. This is very much a Westminster pathology that the media know they've got him on something. And they're like, like a Rottweiler, they're not going to let go. And it's like, well, you're just going to get eaten up by these people because you're doing nothing positive. You know, you're essentially relying on getting away from scandals to just exist, and it's like that's not how you should be governing. You should be like forcefully going forward. This, and this. So like, okay, they can talk about Partygate, but you're gonna, revolutionize that or change this or whatever. But they're not doing anything like that.
Well, I mean, the thing is, even if they get rid of him, who is going to replace him? Who is going to implement those sorts of policies that you're talking about? Who is going to be the one pushing forwards and legislating against progressive policies? Because I don't see any of them. I don't see any of them doing that. In order to oust the Prime Minister, the rebels will need 180 MPs. Allies of Mr. Johnson made clear he's determined to fight and stay on, which is just... The fact that this happened in the first place is ridiculous. I think he had the largest majority since Thatcher. And it's just led to this. It's pathetic.
Yep.
A number 10 spokeswoman said, tonight is a chance to end months of speculation and allow the government to draw a line and move on, delivering on the people's priorities. The PM welcomes the opportunity to make his case to MPs and will remind them that when they're united and focused on the issues that matter to voters, there is no more formidable political force, except they don't ever focus on the issues that matter to voters.
It's just talk. Like we found out that last year they let in 50% more people than in 2020.
And this is after Brexit has gone through.
After Brexit. So in 2020, during the lockdown, 700,000 people were allowed to come and live here. It's like, okay, that seems like a lot. And they're like, okay, but what about 1.16 million? It's like, well, that seems ridiculous. Why are you doing this to us?
Well, Brexit at this point just seems to be ceremonial. It's just like, it's purely aesthetic. We say that we've gone through Brexit, but we'll just keep doing everything that was going on before it.
It's madness.
At greater rates.
This is the thing that the Lord Ashcroft poll showed, that for the Brexiteers, the second most important thing other than sovereignty was immigration. And the Conservatives was like, oh, you like immigration, do you? It's like, no.
No, Boris, no. You've taken this the wrong way, please. Put the spritz down. Liz Truss tweeted, the Prime Minister has my 100% backing in today's vote, and I strongly encourage colleagues to support him. Of course, Truss is going with this. He has delivered on COVID recovery and supporting Ukraine in the face of Russian aggression. And there it is. There it is right there. Who on the street, other than those who are putting the Ukrainian flag in their Twitter bio so everybody knows what a good person they are, really cares about some conflict that is going on like halfway across the continent? No one. They care about the fact that you're taxing them into bankruptcy.
Yeah. The price of food's going up. Yeah, literally, you've raised taxes when you said you weren't going to raise taxes. The NHS is consuming more and more and more of the national budget. And you're like, yeah, but Ukraine is, I just don't care.
We're pushing the green agenda that the Green Party wants as well, just not at the same rate that the Green Party would prefer. We're pushing Labour policies just a few weeks slower than they want. So what is conservative about this party at this point, honestly? And she goes on to say, he has apologised for mistakes made. We must now focus on economic growth. Why? The average person on the street does not care about economic growth. They care about being able to afford food.
And moreover, like, as if the media is just like, oh, well, now you've said that, then I guess we'll let it go.
Oh, yeah. Hands in the air, well...
The Labour-supporting media is doing everything they can to destroy the Conservative Party, and the Conservatives are so goddamn stupid they're going to let it happen.
Yeah. And the Tories who are against Boris also made a list of 13 reasons why. It was that smile, that damn smile is where it all started.
Oh, yeah.
And I've got the link here. So the list brands Mr. Johnson as a conservative Corbyn.
Yes.
Yeah, it's true.
That's totally true. Conservative Corbyn. That's exactly what he is.
And that's big C conservative, because I don't see much conservative about him nowadays.
Yeah.
And concludes that the only way to restore conservative fortunes to a point where we can win the next general election is to remove Boris Johnson as Prime Minister. That might be the case, but it's all dependent on who you replace him with, and I don't see any real contenders.
Do something conservative, and maybe people might like you.
No, we can't have that, because the newspapers won't like us.
That's true.
There you go.
That's a good point.
The document seen by the Times...
Daily Mirror will be furious.
What will the Express say?
The Express would be on their side.
Yeah.
Actually, the Express is conservative.
But
the Guardian would just be like, "Oh my god," flurries of op-eds.
But the document states that the Prime Minister's reception at the service of Thanksgiving tells us nothing that data does not, citing polling that no social group trusts him, with even 55% of current Conservatives calling him untrustworthy. Fair play. And one of the 13 reasons to remove the Prime Minister detailed in the document outlines how the booing which the Conservative leader and his wife received outside St Paul's Cathedral speaks volumes about the public's confidence in his leadership, which,
you did this to yourself.
Pretty much, yep. He started out popular. People liked him back in the day, but not anymore.
I liked him.
Yeah.
I thought he was going to do something.
I thought he was goofy. I thought he was a bit of a clown, but I didn't see any reason to hate him.
Yeah, exactly. And he was saying the right things. Oh, we're going to do this, do that, do the other. It's like, okay, well, go on then. And you've done nothing.
Yep. And, oh, yeah. John just pointing out the Daily Express was bought by the Mirror, so they're posting cringe now. That's why I might have been a bit confused there.
Sorry, I did not know that.
Because I've not seen the Express posting anything based, I'll say that for sure.
Not a big Daily Express reader, I have to admit.
That's
so
fair.
I didn't know that. Fair enough.
And just a reminder that this is not the first rebellion that Boris's government has had. And let's be honest, this is not the first rebellion that the Conservatives have had against themselves for the past 10 years. It's just a consistent cycle. It keeps happening again and again and again. First against Cameron, then against May, and now against Johnson for the second time. It just keeps happening. Nobody has faith in the Conservatives anymore because they're just infighting as much as Labour do.
But what kind of rebellion is it? Is it Conservatives objecting to the progressiveness of the ruling people in the party, or?
It seems to vary from person to person, but there are plenty of people who are basically like, we're not going far enough.
Oh, brilliant.
And we'll see that because, once again, the actual members of the party are not particularly conservative either. They're just not as lefty as Labour are. A record number of Conservative lawmakers voted against one of Prime Minister Boris Johnson's key measures to quell the COVID outbreak, and this is from December of last year. Policy of vaccine certification to enter nightclubs and places with large crowds. And could you think of anything more un-English and more un-British than Papers, Please?
No.
That's the country we are now. And it's happened under the stewardship of a Conservative government. Well, ostensibly Conservative government. And this is what caused 100 Conservatives to vote against Johnson. And another reminder here as well, if we go to the next link, that it was actually Labour's votes, Labour's support of Boris Johnson ensured that these COVID measures passed. Goes to show just how conservative this government actually is, or at least certainly its upper echelon of leaders are. And to be fair, Labour, despite the fact that they seem to be aligned with most of Boris Johnson's goals, are absolutely loving this. You've got people like Dawn Butler posting, finally, 54 Conservative MPs, they're putting forward no confidence. We only need 180, here we go. And then she points out the 1922 committee's rule that Boris will be safe for 12 months, and that's if he gets a vote of confidence, if you don't get the 180s, can easily be changed because they make the rules.
Well, I guess it can, but what's the point in having rules if you're just going to change them at a whim?
I mean, that's just the point of Labour at this point, isn't it? Things aren't how we want because the rules are in place that say we can't. Let's just change everything, upend the whole order.
But why would any of the Conservatives not be looking at this and be like, right, okay, so actually our mortal enemies in the Labour Party, who literally could not bring themselves to agree with something a Conservative did, even if it was something they themselves had suggested, such as things like lockdowns, they're all crowing about this. It's like, okay, well, why don't we do the opposite? So they're screeching. Why don't we want them howling in pain? Why don't we want them saying, oh, we hate everything the Conservatives are doing?
I don't know. And to answer your question of where the opposition is coming from within the Conservative Party, if we go to the next one, Jesse Norman, who says he supported Boris Johnson for 15 years for the London mayoralty and for the Prime Minister, has withdrawn his support and will be voting against him later on. He's got these letters here which explain why, and I've not written down the exact wording, but his reasons that he lists in the letter are as a counterproductive and probably illegal Rwanda policy.
You mean the really popular Rwanda policy?
Yeah, the massively popular one.
The one thing the Conservatives have done that people liked. Right, okay.
Yeah, the privatisation of
doubtful legality.
Yeah.
What does it mean?
It means that if people want to come to the country, they have to be able to, or it's illegal to just say, no, we don't want you here.
No, what he means is like, we're going to employ Tony Blair's Human Rights Act. And it's like, yeah, the thing that the Conservatives should have repealed.
Yes.
Like, it's unbelievable.
I just hate the idea that, your borders, because in a sense, the government, as it stands in a democratic system, are the stewards of a territorial area. They have certain property rights over it. Your property...
I wouldn't necessarily frame it like that, but they have an obligation to defend the integrity of the country.
But it's like if it was like a king or something that saw it as their property, you have boundaries to that, and it's like you're only supposed to be allowed in if people want you in, whereas this government is just like, come one, come all. Who cares?
Well, they just don't seem to care,
Yeah. They also point out the privatisation of Channel 4 because public ownership of businesses is apparently a big conservative talking point. And also, just the government generally lacking a plan. Presumably, this man would like some kind of 4 to 5 year plan to be pushed forward. Because this
So he sounds like a commie. Okay.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that there's this...
Where's your 5-year plan,
Yeah,
says
this-
Comrade Jesse.
This is the current state of the Conservative
Okay.
Party. The only complaints they really have against Boris is, why aren't you progressive enough?
Yeah.
Why aren't you more progressive?
Like, that is literally the complaint here. It's like, oh, you're doing unprogressive things, Boris. It's like, well, barely. And so?
So what? We're conservatives. We're not supposed to be progressives.
Yeah, we're not supposed to be doing progressive
Yeah.
things.
And you've got people like Calvin pointing out the obvious that I've already stated, which is just the sad fact of the matter if we go to the next one, which is just that if not him, then who?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the problem that we've got with the current Conservatives and the Politics UK, just Jeremy Hunt, #never Hunt.
Just what?
And what choices do we have?
I mean, I suppose Liz Truss is probably like, waiting
She'd probably
in the
be
wings.
next in
But
line.
she's terrible as well.
Yeah, all of them, Preeti Patel, Liz Truss, Rishi Sunak, they're all bark, no bite. They will go through the motions of telling you what you want to hear and then never follow through with it.
Kemi Badenoch, but yeah, there's no chance of that.
There's no chance that'll happen.
yeah.
No, and if we go to the next one as well, LBC had Keir Starmer on to talk about this, and just listen to the points that he makes. Just listen to the points that he makes and tell me. Oh, yeah.
Sorry, before we go on, leader of the opposition says, I think you should get rid of this man who I oppose. Oh, big surprise, Keir.
I
Big
know.
surprise.
Big shot, but tell me if the talking points are any different whatsoever from the Conservative talking points that are being put forward. Have you played it, John?
I think the mood has changed. I think the public have made their mind up about this man. They don't think he's really telling the truth about many, many things, not just Partygate, but just the general sense that this man doesn't really tell the truth, can't be trusted. But also, of course, we've got a cost of living crisis, and they're saying, where's the plan? Where's the government we need to lead? And the answer to that is we've got a government that's divided. We've got a Prime Minister trying to cling on to his job. I think most people would say, your job is to help me through the cost of living crisis, and you're not doing it because you're distracted.
I mean, that just sounds like some of the talking points that the Conservatives are putting forward. And I would say, as somebody who, despite becoming more and more disillusioned with the idea of a state in the first place, if I'm completely honest, recognises in the English tradition, the job of the government is not necessarily to make sure that you have money in your pocket. It's to uphold law and order, to maintain cultural stability, and to generally provide a rule of law and court systems and all that sort of stuff. It is not to go and throw money at the population and say, here you go, everything's going to be okay now.
Yeah, but the Labour Prime Minister in waiting certainly thinks that's the case.
Yeah, but they're not English, really, are they? Or at least not in terms of their spirit.
No, it's very continental, but like, it's just so empty when the leader of the opposition is like, well, I think the Prime Minister should resign. Well, yeah, duh, you want that job. Of course you think that. But it means nothing. It's totally hollow. And on what grounds? Well, he's not governing as a socialist. Well, no, he is, but like,
he's not fast enough.
Yeah, not socialist enough. And it's like, oh well, what a shock.
Yeah, you've got other members.
This country is an absolute state.
I know, it's a complete mess. And you've got other members of the cabinet alongside Liz Truss, like Rishi Sunak, saying, I support everything because the vaccine rollout, to our response to Russian aggression, all things that the general public didn't really want. They wouldn't have wanted the vaccine rollout, to be honest, if it weren't for the fact you were locking them down in the first place and then promising vaccines will allow you to not be locked down anymore.
Well, even then, if they were like, look, we're just going to make vaccines publicly available on the NHS, right?
Okay.
Exactly. You'd have been like, right, so I can go to the hospital, get a vaccine if I feel like getting a vaccine. They'd be like, yep, that's the COVID policy done. Then everyone would be like, okay, well, that's fine. And no one would have cared. And everyone just got on their lives.
But no, if you don't get it, then you'll be ostracised from society. And look, we've had to team up with the enemy to get these positions put forward. And then he's just going like, I'm backing him today. We'll continue to back him as we focus on growing the economy. Once again, nobody cares really about growing the economy, at least not in the way that Rishi Sunak and those
you sure
types.
You don't want to just print some more free money, Rishi? That'll grow the economy.
Yeah, that'll help. And clearing COVID backlogs due to policies that your government enacted in the first place. And let's just remind ourselves of Rishi's plans to tackle the cost of living, mentioning printing money. Just print money. Just print money and give it to people. I know that we're still destroying your bank account with taxes and levies and all this sort of stuff, but here's an extra 550 quid. Just don't worry about the inflation.
It just doesn't. It's like they just don't understand or don't care.
Yeah. And if you actually wanted, a policy position to be able to tackle the cost of living and maybe increase some popularity with the Conservative government from Conservative voters, I do have a suggestion, which is something that's been pointed out a number of times. Remove some of the energy taxes. Let's just go to the next one just to finish this off here. Just a reminder, if we scroll down to the graph that they've got here, this is something that's common across the UK right now. This graph breaking down your electricity bill, the thing that is destroying so many people
Look
right
at that
now.
big orange quarter of your bill.
Government obligation costs. I didn't sign up for this.
Environmental and social. Oh, progressive taxes for redistributed policies based on environmental and social concerns in your energy bill.
Because Boris cares more about what the freaks and death cultists and Extinction Rebellion have to say than his own voting constituency. It's absolutely ridiculous. Even if Boris wins this vote, if he loses, it doesn't really matter because the Conservative Party, as it stands, is not fit for purpose in the slightest, because these are the kinds of policies that they're pushing no matter what. And actual confidence in Boris was shattered a very long time ago.
If you appreciated that segment from the podcast The Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content we have on the site, such as the Epoch series, this one between Carla Bow on the life of Pompey. If you want to find out what else we're bringing out, you can follow us on Getter at lotuseaters_com on Getter. Thank you and goodbye.